Bonjour, this is Jasmine. Thank you so much for stopping and smell the roses on Rue Madame. For those of you who are new to the neighborhood, I am a writer, a storyteller, and a community builder. I write about culture, politics, parenthood, and my life here in France. And recently, I've been doing a lot of work on my exclusive gated community on Patreon, where I write and I give you my first accounts of my first ideas, my first thoughts on whatever is going on at the time. So recently, I uploaded a podcast and I was discussing what I was doing on election night and who I was speaking with, and my first instinctual feelings about what was going on. And it's open to the public. That's one of my posts that is open for you. But there's other posts that you make a pledge and you have a monthly subscription and you can get access to a variety of essays, articles, interviews, and full videos. So check that out. Thank you so much for your support. So this video, I wanted to talk about my thoughts on the president-elect and the vice president-elect being actually announced, and it's official, and it's kind of a continuation of my initial post that I did about this topic. So I actually posted something yesterday saying, glad hashtag Kamala. So congratulations to Kamala. She's the first person of color as our vice president, first woman. And those are accomplishments that I've seen a lot of people acknowledge and, shout out and are very excited about. And initially, it didn't really sink in. And I know I've done a video about it, about Kamala. The video is Kamala is no Nina, and Nina Turner is a very well respected politician, very progressive and outspoken, strong, passionate, and she worked for the Bernie Sanders campaign. And that video was about me thinking or me stating how Nina Turner is a more appropriate pick for as like leading and making bold changes compared to Kamala, even though Kamala is very successful in her own right, but that was just my own personal take on it. But again, very, very glad that we can still, you know, push the ball down the field of representation and etc. And then I continue with my post and I say, indifferent or quasi indifferent hashtag Biden. Because honestly, again, I wrote a long essay and it's actually for my VIP patrons. And it's an essay I submitted to a magazine talking about like my stance on Joe Biden and how I really feel about him. So check that out also on Patreon. But yeah, to sum all that up, I was quasi indifferent about Joe Biden because nothing he's said, nothing he's done, nothing he's actually voted on or passed or, showed us or proven to us has gotten me like really excited and enthusiastic and optimistic and energetic about the future of our country. He's just like, oh, it's a nice warm body that's Democrat, but has nothing unique or impressive, to be honest with you. And I hate to say it, but I think it's another version of white mediocrity because, the current president is his own special concoction of that. But Joe Biden is put together, at least. He speaks with some type of coherency and, all of that. So it just makes it seem like he's more of a suited person, which he is. Yes, he is. But it is still a version of white mediocrity, in my opinion. I think that's the overall like consensus, in my opinion. Even though like people probably won't like vocalize that because it's not really a need to. But so yeah, that's how I felt about that. And then I continued with my post, and I said, now what? Question mark. We want, we demand, we want piping hot change. Piping hot change, not lukewarm reform. And that's the gist of how I feel about what's happening. I'm glad, I'm indifferent, and yeah, I'm expecting more than representation. I'm expecting more than symbolism. I'm expecting more. I'm in my mind. I think collectively we must, it's imperative that we demand more than just, oh yeah, the first, cool. And then like we're suggesting like, oh yeah, let's do more of the same. Let's do more of the same. Let's do more of the same and like go back to the mass incarceration system. Let's go back to the broken education system. Let's do all that. Let's put a little, more sprinkle. Let's try to season a stale and poison and, rotten piece of meat. Let's just put the season on it. Put a little, spices. Let's just spice it up. Put a little color on it. And let's continue as usual. Let's just say grace and let's no, like I like to stay positive and enthusiastic and hopeful. I think that's important. And in the essay or the small article that I wrote or podcast, I was talking about optimism and how I was talking to my cousin Spencer about optimism and how it can be kind of like our worst enemy if we're not well aware of historical trends and patterns instead of looking at like what the facts in the history and what people say, like in the statistics. Let's focus on the statistics because we talk about change, we talk about healing, we talk about all these beautiful things. But if you look at the disparities, the inequalities, the increasing wealth gap, if we look at the meat and potatoes of things, like those nice, soft, bubbly words are essentially useless. You know what I mean? Um, and I don't want to like rain on anybody's parade because I am glad for Kamala. And overall, I wouldn't say I'm happy. I wouldn't say I'm jovial or joyful or even um, expecting much. I wouldn't say I'm expecting much, but um, I think it's important to just be constructive. And I don't even really like the word realistic, but realistic. um, I'm going to give you an example of the things I've seen on my social media timeline that is have really great intentions. Like, intentions are phenomenal. Like, we need that energy, that jovialness, that excitement, that. But for me, it was more of a relief. It was like, okay, now let's get to work. Like, nothing else. No parade, no claps, no. It was just a sign of like, because I'll clap when like something is actually done. I'll clap when, you know, people are not like dying when they don't have to. I'll clap when I'll see results. And I think that was the problem in 2008 and 2012 because we were, I myself also was clapping for Obama. We cheerleaded him, we loved him, and I honestly do still respect and think he's one of the um, most influential presences we've had. But there was so much clapping, there was so much focusing on the history making moment without like demanding or um, persisting and insisting on policy, legislation, you know, real, concrete, tangible things. And some would say, yeah, he did a lot of tangible things. Yeah, he was great. He did a lot of legislation. But when you really look at it, I think there was more hooray and hurrah than actual, tangible, sustainable, long term, like policy and legislation. And so a lot of that, I think the majority of it was because of a lot of resistance, racism, blockage from other parties, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at a need for open heart surgery is what we need. We need major systemic deconstruction and reconstruction. Okay? And major deconstruction and reconstruction is not what we got. Let's just be transparent, honest with ourselves, and still applaud the man for what he did. But at the end of the day, like, the violence with police didn't go away. The need for Black Lives Matter, the movement, it's still here. um, the rich getting super filthy rich and the poor getting incredibly depressingly more poor. These things, like, I'm talking about the meat, the potatoes, the deep seated, and the fact that we even talked about, like, the fact that it was even a word post-racial when Obama was in office, that tells us how easy it is for us to sweep over and brush over and put on a really nice wrapping of a gift that is, there is no gift. There's a wrapping around America to make us like forget 400 years of oppression of people, the disenfranchised, just all the bad things, you know, genocide, Native American extinction, all of that. Let's just pretend like now we have a Black president. We're past all that. And what frustrates me now in this very moment, we're doing it again. Like, I'll give you an example. So, the president elect, Joe Biden, in his acceptance speech, it was a call to unite America, apparently. And Joe Biden, in his victory speech, he says, quote, "Let this grim era of demonization in America begin to end." Doesn't that sound like cherry and bubbles, and this is what I'm talking about. Let's unite. I've seen a lot of that on my timeline. Let's unite. Let's heal. Let's come together. Let's put our differences aside. I know the intentions are good. I know the intentions are good when people say that. That's great in theory. In theory, that is great. I'm for that in theory. But we're not living in theory, we're living in reality. So saying that is pointless. It is pointless. It actually is counterproductive because, okay, who are we uniting with? Who are we uniting with? Okay, let me unite with the police, the same police officer that killed Breonna Taylor, the unarmed, innocent woman, first responder, essential worker, dead in her home. Let's reunite with the police officers that killed her. The same police officer that after the fact and most recently is suing Breonna's boyfriend for emotional distress. Let's reunite. Let's reunite with these people. Is that even so? When people say unite, heal, let's get along, let's come together, who are we coming together with? Are we coming together with the killers of Breonna Taylor? Are we coming together with Black Lives Matters counter protesters? We're coming together with them. So the people, the militia, the gang, the hoodlums, the violent people that come to Black Lives Matter protests and say to Black Lives Matter protesters, your life doesn't matter. You're not important. No, go home. I don't agree with you. Let's reunite. Let's unite. Let's heal with them. Who are we uniting with? Who are we healing with? When people say these things, it's supposed to be a really nice, uniforming, uniting, positive, I guess, thing. But be specific. Like, let's not repeat the mistakes of the past by just saying, oh, you know, let's all in the past. Let's get over, let's pretend that, we love our neighbors, the same neighbors that like literally wants to come to our protest and kill us and shoot us dead and like tell us that we don't matter. Let's shake hands with them and like pretend just because Joe Biden is president, just because the Democrat is president, just because Donald Trump isn't the president, let's just heal from this deep rooted major surgery that we actually really need. It's just like saying you need open heart surgery and then me giving you a band-aid and saying, let's heal. Here's the band-aid, let's heal. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Joe Biden wants to end like let's just be the end of this bad era. Let's just forget. No. First, the president, Donald Trump, needs to be held accountable for his crimes against democracy, his illegal corruption, his, fondling and disrespect and criminal acts against women. Let's put him to, you know what I mean? Like, let's just not say, oh, let bygones be bygones and let him go by his merry way. We're not doing that. So who are we uniting with? Who are we healing with? We're not healing with the police. We're not healing with counter protesters. Who are we healing with then? Oh, let's heal with the Trump supporters. They're not all bad. What? They're not all bad? Okay, let's say they're not all bad. They voted for him once. Okay, let's just say we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They won't vote for him again because, we said they voted for him twice. 95% of Republicans, because apparently there's good Republicans and bad Republicans. There's regular Republicans and Trump supporters. At the end of the day, if you look at the statistics, again, it's really nice to just say, oh, some are good and some are bad. There's good people on this side, there's good people on that side, there's bad, there's bad. No, look at the percentages, okay? So let's not call apples and apples the same. Just, no. 95% of Republicans, good or bad, apparently voted for him again. Twice. The last time I looked, 67 million people voted for him. That's nearly half of voting Americans. Nearly. Not half, but nearly half. So if we're uniting and healing with, we're supposed to be healing half the country, supposed to be healing with other half the country. These half of the country, they don't want unity. Here is another post that I saw. It read, to have a president acknowledge systemic racism as an ideology to be dismantled. And he was saying this as if, wow, that never happened. Like, yeah, it's like, this is how low the bar is that this is even worth a post. It's like, okay, he mentioned it. Okay. Like, why should we shouldn't be impressed by like superficial, unimportant, very one-dimensional, you know what I mean? Very surfaced things. Like, okay, he mentioned it. Okay, are we supposed to be impressed by this? I'm sure Barack Obama mentioned systemic racism. You know what I mean? And this was like, you know what I mean? Even Barack Obama seen Amazing Grace in a black church to show his understanding of how profound and devastating this is to our community and how he related. That was impressive at the time. But just a white man mentioning without any policy, any proof, any evidence of any substantial change, like, why should that impress us? Like, I feel like a lot to do with Donald Trump, but how the bar is just like, you can step over the bar and people will applaud you for it. No, what are you doing for me? What are you doing to stop it? Like, again, is Joe Biden and the crime bill at the time locking up, hundreds of thousands of, people of color? And it's been mentioned, it's, common knowledge. And now you want to give him a pat on the back or a pass because he just mentioned systemic racism that he was a part of. You know what I mean? And I want to stop right there to acknowledge the fact that I'm not saying, oh, they're bad, they're bad. They're good, they're good. There's no difference. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if we vote. It doesn't matter, who runs the country. It's all the same. I'm not necessarily saying that at all. I think it is a strategic move to vote. It isn't everything. Because when people say, I don't want to vote, it doesn't mean anything. There's like a million things we could and should be doing. So no one said voting was everything. That's just like very little, like basic, like step in a million, or 100-meter race. That's one step in a 100-meter race. So you not just taking that basic step or attempting to is your own prerogative, because I think it can be strategic to withhold your vote. So I'm not saying that either. I don't think shaming people either is productive, even though I can get like that sometimes when I don't really understand a person's logic behind it. But I understand the global idea of, one way isn't always the right way. So again, I'm not saying, oh, Republicans and Democrats are the same. No, they're not. No, they're not. Okay? It's not the same. And I wanted to give an analogy to like explain. For example, I was talking to my cousin Spencer, and he was saying like universal health care, that's not going to prevent the coronavirus. How are we going to pay for it? This, and this, and socialism, capitalism. It's like when people talk about socialism, they first of all they don't know what they're talking about because the media has fed you this one version or evil scenario or oppressive system that you can't get. No, it's not that. In most countries that are socialists are also capitalists. Like the entire world, Western world especially, is a capitalistic system. So you think Canada aren't capitalists? You do think France, where I live, the fact that people have universal health care, that they're not profiting off of capitalism? I did a group panel recently on politics, and we were talking about socialism, capitalism, and other systems, communism, etc. And one of the members on the panel, very smart, intelligent, intellectual person, said, "Yeah, I benefited from capitalism the other day," as if we were in a socialist system, he wouldn't be able to do that. Okay, you benefited from capitalism. Okay, you can also benefit from socialism and capitalism at the same time and not like, what does that mean? I benefit from capitalism. Yeah, me too. And I live in France, but I have universal health care. Anyways, but as far as you know, oh, universal health care isn't going to save the United States. France has deaths and the pandemic is hitting people there just as much. Yeah, having universal health care is not going to prevent the coronavirus, but the United States is number one, two, or three, but I'm sure it's number one in deaths for the coronavirus and the percentage of people contaminated with coronavirus. So, yeah, both countries can be affected, both countries can have deaths, but the fact that you have preventative care in the form of universal health care, so you can treat the underlying conditions that a lot of people have before a pandemic hits, is smarter than a system that where a lot of people aren't covered. So a lot of underlying you know, conditions are never treated or taken care of before a pandemic hits. So you can't say, oh, they're dying in both countries, the pandemic is in both countries, there's no difference. Well, that's just like saying, why wear a seatbelt? It's not necessarily going to save me from a crash. Yeah, you're right. But the statistics show wearing a seatbelt reduces casualties versus not wearing seatbelts. So just saying, oh, both people die in both scenarios, yeah, but one is like smarter. Like, you know what I mean? So, anyways, to sum it all up, I know I've been like going on a little rant. To summarize it all up, first, I am relieved. Second, bubbly, sweet, positive, hopeful, um, talking points like, oh, let's heal, let's get together, let's, forget, let's, love thy neighbor. This type of behavior, this type of rhetoric, we don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past. So forgetting, so not addressing the open heart surgery that we need, and just putting a band-aid on it with these type of soft and squishy, um, theoretically ideal um, positions like, oh, let's all get together. it's not going to help the open heart surgery by saying things like that. So let's focus on policy, legislation, and getting things done instead of like pretending that we're in a post Trump era when there's still Trumpsters around. They don't dissolve in thin air, and their ideologies don't dissolve in thin air because Joe Biden is president. So why put that out there like, oh, whew, that's over? It's not over. It's not over. And I just want to give you one last quote that I saw. It reads, "We can disagree on politics and still be friends." And then there's another person that says, "Maybe, but friends don't support people, policies, and institutions that oppress their quote friends." So that is perfect. That hits it right on the nail. Like, let's stop saying, oh, let's just be friends when this friend is really just like an enemy. So let's treat them like an enemy, and let's just not pretend like, oh, we can agree to disagree isn't really a thing when it comes to racism and violence and oppression. These are these are like a no-go. No deal. Um, and the last thing I want to leave you guys with is, um, I guess, um, what we can do for ourselves is, I don't know, take care of ourselves because it is like stressful, especially you're into politics. And I was thinking before I was doing, I'm going to do this video, like, wow, I'm not even really a political person. Like, I don't like this isn't really my thing. But the more and more I like get into it and try to share my thoughts and use my voice, you see how ridiculous things are. You're like, I really don't want to do this video. I'm not really into politics, but it does matter. But reserving my mental health is like reserving and managing my stress levels and just thinking like I have wonderful family, I have great friends. We may not all agree, but I love them and I'm a very blessed person. I have a beautiful family, lovely children, a very supportive and amazing husband. So it's like, with all that being said, putting things in perspective, I am content with my life and I'm not going to let politics, like, you know, no matter who the president is, no matter who the vice president is, I know I'm very blessed. So thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to go to Patreon, join the community over there, support creative writing, and check out the book that I am currently writing. And I'm submitting or uploading chapter by chapter for my VIP patrons to get a look at what the book is about. I'm still very excited about that. And have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye.